Hey guys, welcome back to the Lean by Doing podcast. And today my guest is Brian Schreuder. He is one of my best friends and he's worked with me here at JCR Off-Road for almost 5 years. We're going to talk a lot about leadership, when to push, when to pull, and all the things that are involved with being a good leader in Lean. So let's go. So welcome back to the show. Today I have Brian Schreuder. He has worked for me since just after COVID, and Brian's like my ride or die friend. We do everything together. We used to be neighbors for 9 years. Our girls are pretty much cousins.
Yeah, exactly.
And we do a lot of traveling together. We've done trips to see Formula One races. We've gone to Texas.
Baseball games.
Yeah, baseball games. So
Colorado trip.
yeah, I'd say that definitely you're one of my best friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inside and outside of work. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
But I thought Brian would be a great person to have on the show today because we can talk about how Lean looked for him because his job is vastly different.
It is.
Than what it looked like.
It's changed quite a bit since when I started.
All right, Brian. So let's just dig in. Let's start with the day that I popped off all of the Improvement Starts With I books and Lean Made Simple podcasts and Paul Akers' 2-Second Lean book. Like, do you remember back to that particular day?
Yeah, I think it was shortly before the Colorado trip when you introduced it to some of us and you said, "Hey guys, you guys have to listen to this book. This is a really good audiobook to listen to. This is the direction I want to go. I'd like some feedback." Mm-hmm. And I remember driving out to Colorado with my wife and listening to that book. And it was just, an instant game changer, really. Mm-hmm. It just speaks volumes to the way of doing things and the way to improve things. Mm-hmm. And we would stop after each chapter and then we would just discuss it amongst ourselves and how we could apply it here, how she could apply it where she works. She's an administrator at school. And yeah, it was just a fascinating book to listen to. And it was just like you'd stop for gas and then you just pick right up where you left off because you wanted to finish the book.
One of the hardest things with making the Lean transformation is like starting to think Lean instead of just thinking how we've always thought.
Right.
And I feel that a lot of people get paralyzed when everything changes because everything changes.
Yeah, change is not easy.
Yeah. And when it happens, it almost maybe feels like you're just like on uncertain ground maybe, and you're not quite sure how your role fits or looks like or feels. And you kind of flip the business on its head, essentially, for the better, long term.
It is.
But short term, it can be a little rough.
Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty with change. You know, when you've got consistency, you're comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what to expect. And anytime you introduce change, it can be a little bit scary just because you want to see the end result, but it takes time to get there.
Yeah.
It takes patience.
So now when we talk about the changes that we've made, at the time, you want to define what your role was, kind of like pre-Lean?
Yeah. So when I was hired in, I was hired to be an operations supervisor overseeing the shipping department and our powder coating department. I had been doing that for almost 5 years, and then we started changing directions, and yeah, I would oversee quite a bit. I had a lot on my plate, which was fine. I enjoy that. There's a lot of the processes. Once the product was finished in production and fabrication, it would come to me, and then I would basically take it over, and then I would move it towards powder coating, and then when the product would come back from powder coating into the warehouse, then I would take care of receiving it into inventory, and then releasing those items so that they could be shipped.
Would it be safe to say that you did a lot of babysitting?
I did a lot of babysitting.
Would it be safe to say that a good chance that 50% of your daily activities were babysitting product and people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one thing with Lean in your department was that you never had like an anchor Lean person. And it was really strange because out of the 6 or 7 employees that were overseen in that warehouse, there wasn't like one particular one who really got it.
Right.
So you were kind of swimming upstream against their current.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we had this red curtain that goes back to fabrication. And behind the red curtain, those guys, their whole department picked it up.
They were on fire.
And it was
quite
really
quickly.
Yeah, it was really frustrating because I remember many days where I would come out and I'd be like, man, we got to get this moving. And you're just like, I don't know how to get it moving. I can't babysit product and babysit people as well as move this forward.
Exactly.
And so it was a really interesting transition, if you would say. And obviously we did a major Kaizen event where we completely rearranged the entire warehouse. And the goal was to start looking at how this workflow is going to go into the new facility. And we wanted to get started on that as soon as possible because anything we can do here, it's less we have to do there. It also gives us a lot of time to look at the workflow and determine if there's a better way to do it than what we're currently doing. So we can start doing improvements now on the workflow.
Yeah. Why wait?
I feel like that was like major crown, like jewel in the crown for us, as well as for your job responsibilities. That's when things were forced to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just so that, everyone kind of listening kind of gets the gist of it, we basically were making product and we would leave it on a cart. And most of the time it was made to order. And when a customer would order it, our guys would get it and they would package it and ship it. And what was happening was we were just basically putting raw parts on the shelf. Like raw powder coated parts stacked on top of each other, just sitting on the shelf, waiting for customers. And we determined that it was best if we actually started packaging everything and having it ready to just be picked off the shelf and a label put on it. So essentially we created a packaging line and then we have a shipping person, where before we had all people doing packaging and shipping. And since we've done that, it's been probably, I don't know, what would you say, a month?
Yeah, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks now.
And in that time, has that changed everything?
It's changed tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got guys that are just dedicated to packaging only, and that's all they're doing. And the packaging is getting done so much quicker. And then those parts are getting placed on the shelf. We've got another guy that's just one guy is able to keep up with all of our orders. And our output is the same. With just one guy pulling those orders, the output is the same.
I would say that it's
versus
smooth.
three plus part-time help.
I would say it's smoother.
It's so much smoother.
And less painful.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the other things, and I have a video on this, is like a spaghetti diagram of the warehouse and how much walking they were doing. Ben Flick, we kind of measured out what he was walking, and it was over 3 miles a day just to go to the box machine, let alone any of the other directions that he had to go to get bulk packs, because we definitely had no optimization on the layout.
Right, exactly.
So the way that's laid out now, the packaging line are actually within, what would you say, 10 or 15 feet of the box machine?
Yeah.
So we probably added 45 minutes to their day.
Easily.
Just in them not having to.
Just in that wasted motion.
Yeah. So that was something that's like been hugely beneficial. Obviously, if you're trying to get throughput, remove the waste. Waste of motion and transportation was our biggest culprit there.
Absolutely.
Now, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how your job role has shifted.
It's changed a lot.
Since we've done that Kaizen event.
Yes.
And we have removed all the babysitting completely.
Yeah.
Like it's gone.
Yeah.
We have essentially done a Kaizen event that eliminated your position.
Yeah. In many ways, it has.
And we also reduced another part-time person. All the improvements that we did in that department, we reduced 1.5 bodies down. It's crazy.
And the flow is better.
It works every day.
It does.
And as you're talking about with the shipping person's actually been able to kind of like water spider, kind of sort of help get the product prepped for packaging when they have downtime. And
they can slide over and help with packaging, or they can help line things up for the guys that are doing the packaging, and they can help look for any components that need to go with those parts, have it all prepped and ready to go.
For us, Ben Flick has been a huge asset. And he's somebody we leaned on forever in that department. And
he's a workhorse.
And when it came to like if you had to take a vacation day, like if we were going to go to an F1 race, Ben was your backup.
Yeah.
Right? You taught him to do your babysitting.
Right.
So then Ben would do the babysitting as well as the packaging and shipping. Now that we've removed that, Ben can just focus on adding value to the shipping process, whether that be pulling the product, shipping the product out the door, as you said, helping with packaging, or he can actually just quarterback stuff.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
And that has been crazy. So I think it's really cool that we went from having a department that you really didn't have a backup, so to speak, or it was really difficult when you left.
Right. Yeah, I put a lot of burden on Ben.
To now where it just operates. And one of the ways that we did this is we actually changed all of the routing in our ERP system, so the products didn't have to like stop with Brian and then have to like move forward. And now things kind of flow through past where you were to the powder coating, and then back from powder coating to packaging, and then the packaging essentially has a work queue that they work out of, exactly. And they know these are the things that I have to work on instead of waiting for a customer to place an order to then package something. So we're taking a lot of we're trying to take the unevenness out of that department away, which I think why we saw such a big pickup in productivity is because now that the unevenness is less.
And everything is first in, first out too. I think that's helping save a tremendous amount of time. In the past, when they were packaging and shipping at the same time, a lot of people would take some of the easier products and package those first just because, hey, this is easier. I'll knock this out of the way. That bumper might be a little bit heavier. I'm a little tired. I had a rough day. I'm not ready to lift that yet. I'll wait till the afternoon until I've got more energy before I get to that. Well, now that's just that much pushed off to the side further back before that order gets out.
I feel like a big problem we had in the shipping department had a lot to do with like autonomy, personal autonomy. And I feel like a lot of people would lean on you as a crutch. And because you were being relied on a crutch, you'd have to work on Saturday mornings and you would work late into the evenings to make sure that they were being set up. And I feel like that is gone. And some of that required us to look at how we were staffing, which is a difficult thing. I think that both of us are pretty easy bosses.
Absolutely. Probably to a fault.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we give people the benefit of the doubt. I think it kind of comes from our Christian nature, like trying to be godly and trying to lead people and, be a good person.
Be patient.
Yeah, and it's hard because, sometimes you get people in the wrong seats or you're basically just working on a project that's never going to mature for you.
Right.
So when we got into 2-second lean, Paul Akers is adamant about, like, if you have the wrong people or if they're not participating, get rid of them. And I really struggled with it because I felt like it was like dogma. The dogma of 2-second lean is, is a little bit cutthroat in a way. And I felt like it kind of cut against my grain. So we were very patient with people to the point where it eventually was, we weren't able to continue.
Right, exactly. A change had to be made.
And we had to change the people.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Because really the people are great people. I've had a lot of great people in the department. Yeah, you've got some people that come in, you think they're going to work out, and they don't. But there's a lot of nice people that we've had in the department that are just not, it's not a good fit.
Right.
And it's hard to let those people go. But the change was necessary.
In lean, you really create a challenge environment. And that's the thing, right? You can't be passive.
Right.
You have to say, at the end of the day, I need this done, and there's a reason why I need it done, and here's the reason why. Where in the past, we might say, hey, by the end of the day, if you could get this done, that would be helpful. And that was a big shift because when you go from this, nice leadership that's like, hey, if you could do me a favor and get that done for me, that would be great, to now we're saying, our customers want this. Make sure it's done today.
Right. And that's the balance between the pull culture and a little bit of a push.
Yeah.
You kind of have, maybe push isn't the right word, but you have to challenge people. You have to set goals for people. And that's where I have a little bit harder time with saying, it has to be all pull and no push, because people need that little urge. People need to have that sense of urgency and that goal that needs to be reached.
So we always talk about that, right? Create pull for everything. Create pull for your employees, create pull for your customers, pull, and don't push. Anything you push is a waste. Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot where sometimes you have to push.
You do.
Because if you don't push,
you don't have progress.
They don't move.
Yeah, you don't advance.
Yeah, so I know that we've talked a lot about how difficult it is to know when to pull and when to push.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of it has to do with knowing your people. You get to know your employees, you get to know who you're managing, and you can figure out pretty quickly, if you're paying attention, what drives people and where that limit is. I might be able to say one thing to Ben and get results, whereas if I say that to another employee, it's going to backfire and they're going to shut down. So
it's like knowing when to push and pull is important.
It is.
And I always said, like, if you go back and watch fast cap videos from 8 years ago with Paul Akers, you say, okay, well, he's not creating pull. Paul would walk around and look at everybody's improvements, and he would say, what's your improvement today? And they would say, well, I don't have an improvement today. And then he would look around and say, that's your improvement today. Do that, and I'll come back and check on you. And we didn't do that. And we didn't do that pre-lean, and we were not doing it initially in lean because we were trying to allow people time to come around.
Figure things out.
Right.
Yeah, everybody comes around and that light goes off for everyone at different times. But.
Yeah. So it's like, how long do you wait for somebody to start to pull on you, move forward? Otherwise, you're just dealing with an immovable object that's in your way. And I feel like we got to the point, maybe at that like 6-month mark, 5.5-month mark for us, where we decided that it's too hard to swim upstream and it's starting to affect the culture around them and the people around them. And that's when you have to make the hard decision and say, this person has to go. Nobody wants to do that.
No, it's not a nice thing to do.
Yeah. But in order to maintain what you're trying to build, if you're going to build a challenge culture and people aren't meeting the challenge, then how do you expect the people that are willing to meet the challenge to continue to meet the challenge if you don't remove those that aren't?
Exactly.
And we had to remove, well, we've removed 3 or 4 people from this place because of the changes. And it wasn't necessarily that they were coming slow. It would be more or less maybe that they just didn't want to.
Right. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wrong mindset.
I think it's really crazy to think like there's some people that just don't want to do this.
Right.
Because it just seems like it makes sense.
It makes everything easier.
But it does take hard work.
It takes work. It does take work.
Yeah. It's funny to think like people see all of this stuff improving and getting better and easier, and everybody else is like, rah, rah, this is awesome. And then you have people that are just like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
No, thank you. And then they'll like just go about their job in the worst way to the point where they essentially remove themselves from the operation.
They do. That's exactly what it is.
And I feel like we've given people a really long rope where we've basically sat people down and said, hey man, you got to get going. It's time.
Yeah.
And
we've had discussions with people encouraging that before they've been let go. And some people want to engage with it, and some people just are here to work.
Yeah.
And I want to punch the clock, and I want to work for my 8 hours, and then I want to punch it. I want to go home, and I don't want to change.
It's the idea of hiring slow and firing fast. And that is something that we've encountered as we've tried to hire new employees is they don't necessarily get it. And we're so far ahead. How do you bring them forward? And that's really hard.
It's a challenge.
That's
Absolutely.
a really big challenge. I don't have the right answer for it.
Yeah. One thing I've been doing is even during the interview process, when we're going to hire somebody, I know Kevin is asking people to listen to 2 Second Lean, ask them to listen to some podcasts. And once we've hired people in, it's the same way. I mean, you've got 8 hours of the day where they've got the privilege to throw some AirPods in their ears and listen and challenge people to, hey, let's turn the music off for a little bit. Why don't you listen to this podcast for an hour a day? Listen to this book, and then try to bring them up to speed that way. And we're leading by example.
Right. As somebody who has been adverse to growing the last handful of years, I can totally get where we like to listen to Formula One podcasts and listen to all things Formula One and some baseball stuff. And that stuff's fun, and we want to listen to that.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to work on personal development and growth.
Exactly.
And when you have an entire culture of people that are growing, if 75% of your culture is growing and 25% is not, it becomes this giant chasm between them.
There's a huge distance.
And then eventually it becomes such a problem that they're basically working against you in your operation, and you're making improvements and they're just getting in the way of the improvements. I'm not going to do this. It's not the way I've always done it. And, you try to work with them and show them improvements in their area. You try to help them find improvements and make improvements, and you rah-rah cheerleader them, and you do all this stuff. And eventually it's just still not enough.
It's frustrating.
It really is. I kind of had a mindset coming into this that I could change anybody. And what I learned is that that's not the truth.
Yeah. Some people are just really resistant to change. And even with all the evidence for the positive outcome and the ease of work, the organization, the flow increase and improvements that we've made, some people are they're stubborn that way. It's tough.
I've kind of had this realization in the last couple weeks where I just don't want to fight anymore. I want to do this and I want to move it forward, but I'm way less patient as far as that goes because I just don't have time. I don't have time to try to argue with somebody why lean thinking works. It's at this point, I feel like you should be thinking lean or you shouldn't be here. And that's a really hard one because that kind of cuts against what I've always done and who I've always been, and always trying to help people move forward. But sometimes you just can't move them. I mean, what do you do at that point? How much coaching do you coach before you say this person just doesn't want to learn?
Right.
And
Yeah, because there's a lot of investment that's been put into this company to make these changes, and you like to see results. You like to see your investments grow. Different than your 401k or any pension or retirement. You like to see results.
yeah. And lean is about people, right? It's people first, except for some people just refuse to accept it. And that is just, I just don't get it.
No.
It's one of those things that just, it really eats me alive, because as somebody like, as a godly person, it sucks to say this person isn't good enough. You know, we're judging people,
Right.
you know, in a way, and that hurts, you know, especially when you've unlocked a different level of leadership and you're trying to be a better leader and a more inclusive leader and somebody that's listening. And then the worst thing that happens is, like, you'll have a group rallied around something, and you have 5 or 6 people, and we're all like standing around and we're talking about this improvement and we're talking about how we can make it better. And then somebody comes up and just a stick in the mud, you know,
Negative attitude or negative perspective.
yeah. And they just think it's dumb. And it's just like, nothing takes the wind out of your sails faster than that.
Yeah.
Or
It can be pretty deflating.
yeah. Now, we also talk about, like, trying to get our leadership internally to think differently. And we've switched to value streams. So you've become a value stream manager for the non-welded products.
Right.
Whole new responsibility.
It is.
You've never done it before.
No.
You don't know what the job title looks like or how it's going to feel or...
Yeah, exactly. I was scrolling through my podcasts. I've got several podcasts that I listen to, lean podcasts, and I was looking for anything on value stream managing, just to aid my work and learn more about how it works. You know, what is value streaming, and how can I be good at it?
The thing about value streaming, and we've been talking about this a lot, but we've actually gotten a lot of feedback from people wanting to know more, but it really focuses on just doing. Like taking action. And that's like the part that changes it, because you can't sit back at your desk and you can't sit behind this computer screen. You physically have to go find the problem and uproot the problem and fix it. And that's hard. That's not easy.
No, it takes time. I mean, we do a Gemba walk each day, and it takes a half an hour to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour if we discover something, or we're in a conversation with somebody on the floor. But it takes a lot of observation. A lot of it's just standing and watching the processes and really focusing on areas that could be improved.
Yeah.
Trying to, take the burden out of the work.
By default, you've kind of been stuck with fixing warehouse problems, because that was your expertise originally. We did the Kaizen event. There's still upgrades that need to be done there. There's still improvements that need to be made there. It's the thing you're the most familiar with. So that's been an obstacle to try to transition to the value stream manager, when you still get pulled back into...
I still spend a good portion of my day in the warehouse.
Yeah, trying to help with some issues that may happen. Sure, it's not the same issues. They're just different issues.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with the implementation of, like, Kanban, or the problems that happen because we don't have Kanban implemented.
Right.
And I don't know, something like that. And you're also, like, in this weird transition phase where these guys think, like, is Brian my manager?
Right.
Is he not my manager?
Right.
Who is my manager?
Right.
So
and some of the responsibilities that I've handed off, I'm still in the process of training. There's different things that come up in our ERP system that they haven't experienced before, and they'll bring that question to me and say, okay, well, this is what you do in this situation. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but here's how to handle that. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions still.
Training and coaching is hard. I don't think any traditional company does a great job at training. And because of that, you get mixed results. You bring somebody in that's new. You don't set them up for success. You give them maybe 4 hours worth of training, and then you're like, all right, we need to get to value. So start packaging today. And because of that, you're not training the new lean concepts in. So we're not teaching what one-piece flow means. We're not teaching why batching is bad. We're not teaching the importance of standard work. And that has been hard, because I think there's a lot to discover here that we have yet to uncover. And we're still going to have to kind of suss that out and come up with a good process. In the short term, if we have to hire, it's going to be painful, because they come in so far behind. And it's like it's like a cult. Yeah. We're using acronyms, and we're using Japanese words, and we're using all kinds of stuff that they've never heard of in their entire life. And they're trying to get on an escalator when it's already moving the opposite way or something, and that's kind of
Yeah, bringing those people, the new hires, up to speed on what lean is definitely a challenge. On the flip side, we have SOPs for so many things that we do now that we can have new hires come in and they can get started right away by following an SOP. But yeah, that head knowledge, that understanding of lean, it's definitely been a challenge to teach that and get them up to speed on where we are.
We've had several employees that had downtime, and we shifted them up into the packaging line.
Yes.
And every one of them that have worked internally are like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of our best running departments as far as like lean tools and standard work, and everything's integrated. We've done a really good job getting there.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't even know, 900 SOPs that have been created through that department.
There's a lot up there.
But it's really easy to just throw a body in and say, help us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday we had one of the guys was sick, and we had some guys that had some downtime in the machining department. So I brought one of the guys up, and he had never shipped before.
Never.
Chris. Everybody knows Chris, right?
Yeah.
So Chris came up, and I gave him a Kanban card with a whip tag and said, Chris, look up this SOP on the Gemba Docs app, and away he went.
Yeah, and he packaged all day.
He packaged a lot of stuff in his first day.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. So it seems like we've given some really good advantages to new hires, but also trying to convince somebody that it's time to turn on your student mind again is hard.
It is.
And I wish that like everybody should be a lifetime learner. That's kind of what I've learned from Lean.
Yeah, I agree. I've been the same way.
Yeah. So how do you teach I'm done learning, but you're not, right? There's so much to learn. There's so many books out there. There's so many things that you can do to develop yourself as a person and make yourself a more valuable person. And it's hard to get people to think that way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you have to have that desire. And, I'll be the first to admit, I have really enjoyed learning again. It's challenging. It's fun to learn because you can see the results, and I think you become more valuable as a person.
Well, we think about learning. We learn about MLB baseball stats and player statistics, and
we put all sorts of time into investing into the things we love.
Yeah, and it's like trying to understand that it's okay to be passionate about work. It's okay to be passionate about a thing that goes on at work, and it's okay to spend some outside time developing yourself, because all of these tools are applicable to your home life.
Exactly.
Or to your church life, or to a sports team that you're playing on, whatever it may be. You can use this stuff to your advantage.
These tools are not limited to work.
Yeah. And that's the part that's hard, because some people are like, well, I don't want to do this outside of work. And it's like, yeah, but you need to. So I think that's where, when we talk about like the push and the pull, I think if somebody's willing to be an active learner, it's way easier to pull them. It's the people that don't want to spend the time learning that become the obstacles that, well, I hate to say it, but work their way out of a job.
Right. That's unfortunate, but that's reality.
Tom's book, Improvement Starts With I, he always talks about change the people or change the people. And I get it. I totally get it. I talk to him pretty regularly about this stuff. And, sometimes you've got to break some eggs to make an omelet. You can't take everyone along. Not everyone's going to embrace it. Some people feel that it's too difficult, or the morning meetings are silly, or their schedule doesn't align with the new schedule of the company. And you deal with all of these things where maybe in the past you've been too flexible as a company, and you're reeling in some of these perks in a way, and they get a little offended by it. We had somebody that left because the morning meeting schedule didn't work with their childcare situation. And forever we've been able to be flexible, but now we're saying, sorry, the morning meeting is a must. If you're not here for the morning meeting, then you shouldn't have a job here. Initially, I thought that was crazy.
Oh yeah, when we first talked about it, I said, "Are you serious?
Yeah,
this person's been with the company for a few years now.
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah,
actually, that person was. Yeah. And you're just saying that they can't be part of the company,
right?
And I was like, yeah, they can't. And now that we've been doing lean for about 6 months, 6.5 months. Oh, this will be 7 months, right? 7 months, right? About the end of March. Yeah. You really see the importance of that morning meeting, because all the communication internally is brought through that morning meeting, and the shout outs and the engagement that people get from shout outs. Because if you're not at the morning meeting, you're not going to get a shout out most likely. department updates, the announcements, the birthdays, the anniversaries, like all kinds of stuff in there. It's all meant to build a team.
Exactly.
And you can't have somebody that's not on the team. It'd be like if you didn't go to practice, right?
Don't expect to play if you're not going to be willing to practice.
Yeah, that's probably the best analogy for it, right? If our practice time is our morning meeting in our 3S, and if you can't be there for that, then how do we expect you to play in the game?
Right.
Because you're teaching during the meeting and you're teaching during tests and you're trying to make improvements. You don't make big changes in a game. You don't change your entire batting stance and swing in the middle of a game. You do it in practice. Yeah, so that one was really tough. Going forward, though, with Lean, what are some of the things that you're working on and you're hoping to accomplish, I don't know, maybe in the next 30, 60 days?
In the warehouse, we still have some SOPs that we need to finish. We've created a ton of SOPs, but there are still parts that we don't see as frequently that we haven't had an SOP for. Trying to challenge the guys each day to keep looking for those parts as they flow through the building. We've got some more organization to do, more labeling to do. There's parts on the shelf that don't have labels. We've got bins from before we transitioned into Lean that have parts in them that just need to be labeled. Maybe parts that aren't used as frequently. Our two-bin system is pretty up to date, but there's still some work that needs to be done there as well.
Yeah, I can agree with you because I've been helping you with a lot of those Kanban projects.
It's been very nice.
What'll happen is you'll find something on a turnback board and it'll be because we didn't have the two-bin set correctly or that part isn't on Kanban. And then you're like, all right, I'll just get this done and just kind of mutter through it. I've kind of had a frustrating morning because, I have 70 SOPs that I have to create Kanbans for in order to launch the Kanban card onto the shop floor because that's kind of the process that I've been working with. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's just a lot.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, and you just chip away at it, and I just kind of can remind myself, it doesn't have to be fixed today, so I can just start. And if I get 5 of them done, it's 5 less that I have to do tomorrow.
A little bit at a time.
Yeah, because someone could say, well, I'm just going to sit down and do all 70 of these, and I don't think that's the right way because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make spelling error mistakes. You're going to laminate it. You're going to put it up on the board, and then someone's going to catch your mistake, and you're like, and then you're going to be redoing work. Obviously, that doesn't work very well at all. Right. We talked a lot recently about how we wanted to move forward as far as development of employees go and opportunities for employees. We've been giving opportunities to those that actually embrace Lean more than anything else, right? That's a number one thing for us. If somebody gets Lean, we can teach them a way to be more valuable. So how do we get to where we can start moving some of these people forward that still don't get it?
Well, that's the challenge. I think you need to get to know people, for one. I think, with our morning meetings, we have a grateful and proud of slide. And a lot of people will share pictures of their family or some of their hobbies or interests. And I think when you get to know people better, you can start conversations with them, engage with them, and then people are willing to change. If you show that you're interested in their development, people are willing to soften up a little bit. And then you can influence them in a positive way towards the direction that we're trying to go. I think that's a huge thing. It's just developing people, and in order to develop people, getting to know them better.
Well, they say that if you want to get to somebody or get to know somebody or win them over, you figure out what they want to talk about and you figure out what's important to them, and then you just listen. And they often say that the people will say, this person's a great conversationalist, when really all they did was listen. And I thought that's pretty crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? I get stuck talking a lot. Internally, externally, people are always trying to hit me up for information. And a lot of times I'm trying to think, okay, well, how can I speak less and listen more? And that has been a big tool that I've used. But I think the biggest tool that any leader, lean leader, should look at is just the power of doing. Just go and do it. Lead by example. Show someone how to do it. Be enthusiastic about what you're doing. Pull them over and be like, hey, you got to see my improvement. This is so cool. And sure, it may be something that's not relevant to them, but maybe, that you're sharing with them and you're taking the time to hey, I want you to see this. I've tried to do that where people walk through the building and I'm working on something or looking at something. I was looking at a turnback board this week and somebody walked by who had never looked at the turnback board. I was like, hey, come here and look at this. And then I started showing the, things that were done on the turnback board. They weren't relevant to them really, but they are. And I was like, isn't this crazy that this is showing up? And look at it, showing up twice, and it showed up twice in a month. I was like, That's crazy. I'm like, what do you think we could do to fix this? And it was like starting to engage them. And they didn't have the best answers in the world right now. It was working.
But it gets their mind moving.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was like, all right, trying to test the water. Who's lukewarm? Who's maybe ready to start pulling a little bit? But it does take a little bit of push.
Yeah.
You know?
We'll do that on our Gemba walks. Randomly walk up to people and say, how's your day going? Taking that from another podcast. I don't remember who. Are you winning or are you losing today?
Yeah.
Just simple engagement and conversation. Well, what's frustrating you today? What's going good today? And slowly with time, people will start softening.
When we talk about value stream managers, one of the things that I thought about this week was that we get to do improvements all day. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is, we can be working on improvement. That's our job, to work on improvements and make improvements. So then I was thinking, all right, how do we spend our time helping other people, and how do we show them how to do these improvements, or how do we show them the value of their improvements? Or, like if we make an improvement to an area that came up on a turnback board, it could be their area. So how do we engage them with that change? What's a strategy that you've used where, you may have an improvement idea and it's in their area? Like, how are you engaging them in that?
When we're doing our walks, we'll come up with an idea, and rather than just running with that idea, it's important to talk to the person who that idea is going to affect. And then you can get their input, and they will tell you, that's a good idea, but I think you should do this, you should make this change, or they'll just say, no, that's not going to work at all. Because I'm not a fabricator.
Right.
I've never worked in a machining department. I've managed people for many years, but I don't operate a lot of the equipment those guys are operating. So I might have a suggestion in mind, or we might, as a value stream team, have a suggestion in mind, but it's really important to engage people and ask for their input. Because right away, one, it's showing that you care about their opinion, and you're asking for their input. They're the experts in those departments. So why not give them the opportunity to speak towards an improvement?
There's times where I've come up with improvement ideas for, we'll just say a brake press, right? I walk over and I see something and I'm like, oh man, that might work really well. The way I would go about it when I first started is I would just I'd make the change, move forward, implement it, and here it is. Now I look at that and I say, hey, come over here for a second. Tell me what you think of this idea. And then I tell them the idea and I was like, do you think that would make your life any easier? And they're like, I don't think so. And then I just abandon it. If it's a really good idea, it'll come up again, or I'm just trying to plant seeds, I guess.
Right.
And then if they might say, you know what, that might help. And then I'd be like, would it be helpful if I helped you with this improvement and we try it? And they're like, yeah, let's just try it. So then we roll something out. It's super simple, super easy, and they give you feedback right away.
Right.
Where we spent a lot of time initially getting like really developed into ideas. And then when they roll out on the floor and they don't work, it's like counterculture.
Right.
Because that person that you're trying to pull is now frustrated even more because you just made their job harder.
Exactly.
And so it's like, how do you figure out that how do you remove the waste without shifting the waste?
Right. That is a challenge.
It is a very big challenge, but I certainly appreciate you coming on today and talking about all this.
Thanks for asking.
I'm really excited to see what we look like in our new building. We talk about it all the time. When we move.
Yeah.
I think we've done a really good job of making sure that we're moving forward, regardless of the fact that we're actually not physically moving.
Right.
And
because we're going to be in there a lot later than we were expecting.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been really, really good to get things started now. What does it matter whether we're in the new building or whether we're still here? The learning can start now, and it's important to really iron out the kinks now, so then when we move, that move is that much easier. We've got processes in place.
You just got to start.
You do.
You have to start and you have to do it. Those are like the two biggest takeaways. Anytime it's like, how did you do it? Well, I just started and I just did it. I'm more willing to just like build something out of cardboard and try now than I was maybe like 3 months ago, because I was a lot more confident in my ideas. But I've learned that that's a failure by far. So that's, I guess, another one for another day, is like how to make an improvement and how to move it forward. Anyways, I just certainly appreciate you coming on here, and I appreciate everything you've done for us as a company, and I certainly appreciate you as a friend, and I'm going to tear up.
You're the emotional one of the two here. So.
But no, I think it's just it's been great. It's been great to work with my friends. It's been great to build relationships that you can come to work every day and work with your friends. And I think that that's beyond powerful, because you always know your friends have your back, but if your friends are at work, it's even easier because now you can count on them. I don't have to double check anything on you. You're just going to take care of it. If I ask you to take care of it, you're going to do what's in the best interest for all of us. It's like just, continuously moving the ball forward. So anyways,
I gave you a lot of credit too. So you've been an awesome friend. I really enjoyed getting to know you. And, I had hesitation when I should I take this job offer or not? Because back then I considered you one of my better friends. But wow, what a blessing it's been.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So anyways, I've been making it custom to finish every episode with a fist bump. So,
all right,
let's kick ass.
That's right.
See you, Brian.
See ya.
It's been my goal with the Lean by Doing podcast to give you guys exceptionally good lean content. I'm trying to do a deep dive on a lot of the things that I'm learning, and I hope that you guys are taking away a lot of good information. If there are things that you would like to see me cover, please just reach out to me in the comments or email me or call me or do whatever. But also make sure that you're subscribing to our YouTube channel. And then also, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or on Spotify, give us 5 stars, and we will really appreciate the support. I will catch you guys on the next piece of content. Have a great week.